Okay, so we are now live. We are recording. So you want to follow along with this too. However, in this particular case, I'm not going to get too sticky about which version you submit. If you already submitted the one from yesterday, then that's fine. You don't need to resubmit it with the stuff that we're going to do right now. If you have not submitted it yet and you want to submit it with the extra links thrown in, then cool. But do make sure you do them at least. Follow along, even if you're not going to submit this version, because we're going to be using these files again next week when we start to apply some CSS and some box modeling and so on. And in that case, you want to have all of these files ready to go. So do follow along. It's up to you which version of this you want to submit. Now we're going to do something that for your coders, it's probably going to make you shudder a little bit because we're going to be duplicating a lot of stuff here. We're going to be doing the opposite of dry code and repeating ourselves a lot. And if that bothers you, then yeah, it should bother you, definitely. And in a real world project, you would want to do your best. Well, not all real world projects. In most real world projects, you'd want to do your best to not do what we're about to do right now. Instead of duplicating the page over and over again, which will lead to a situation where if we want to change something about all the pages, like, oh, whoops, we got the name of the website wrong. We need to change that on all the pages. That's like nobody wants to do that, right? Let's say you've got, I don't know, let's say it's an e-commerce site. Let's say you've got 100 pages, 500 pages, and all of a sudden you have to like edit every single one. Yeah, nobody's going to want to do that. No one's going to want to pay you to do that. So later on, you guys will learn how to template this stuff. So take some of this boilerplate out of the HTML pages and either call it in using fetch and JavaScript, or PHP or something like that. But for now, we don't have those tools handy yet. So we're just going to do the duplication bit. So this is the page. And before I do anything, let's go ahead and pop on over to our directory, which is this guy right here. I know I've still got it in Unit 2, but I'm just going to keep going on this and then move it over to Unit 4 later on once we get there. So we've got the images folder, which remember this is where all your pictures want to go. Any pictures that you're planning on using directly. And 3 of them we're using already. We're using Chua, and Sorkin, and Tubin already. And I can only assume we're going to add Erie and Tynan, or however you pronounce those guys later on, and Samson. So those are the images that we're actually using in the web pages. And then the resources, this is the stuff you may use in the process of building your web app, but they don't get used directly as dependencies in the actual project as it gets uploaded and served over a file server. And to this, we're going to add another subfolder. Just as a reminder, next week we're going to have 2 more subfolders under here. We're going to have a CSS or styles subfolder where we'll put all our CSS stuff. And then we'll also have a JS or scripts subfolder where we'll put our JavaScript. That'll actually happen later on. So actually next week we'll just have 1 more folder besides these. And then the JS folder will probably wait until week 4 at least, maybe week 5, we'll see. So first thing you want to do, pop on over to your root directory and go ahead and make a new folder inside of that. And we're going to call this one speakers. And this is where we're going to save our new HTML files to. Pop back over here. Before I do this out of habit, I'm just going to kind of look at the boilerplate, like the footer and the header and the document elements, and just make sure there's nothing that I'm going to immediately have to go in and smack my head against the wall and like edit on all of them after duplicating this file, because that's the trouble with doing it this way. It tends to happen. Okay, I think it's all right for now. I'm going to go to save as here and save this as a different file name. And remember, what we've got right now is index.html. Recall what we were saying yesterday, that the home page has to be called index. Otherwise, if you uploaded this to a file server as San Joaquin Valley Town Hall.com, then the file server won't be able to locate a home page for your visitors. Got to be index.html, index.php. If you wind up using Node later on, then you call your home page index.js, but at that point it doesn't really matter as much because it's not a static file. Okay, so let's go into speakers here, and we'll save as, we could use any of them. I remember the name Chua. It's just the shortest one, and it's also, I think, the first alphabetically. So let's go ahead and save a Chua.html inside of the speaker subfolder. And okay, double check and make sure that we're looking at the right one here. So now your job is to figure out, like, okay, which of the stuff is going to remain the same on all pages and which content is going to change from page to page. I think I gave you a hint yesterday, or not a hint, I told you outright. The stuff in the main element, this is the stuff that's generally, almost always, is going to be the stuff that changes from page to page. Whereas the stuff outside the main element, the header, the footer down here, later on we'll have a nav element, and certainly the boilerplate. That's the stuff that stays the same from page to page. So the stuff that I'm going to delete is going to be all inside the main element. I'm going to leave everything else alone. And I may not delete everything altogether. It's possible. Remember we were saying, okay, so the H1 here, this is really your page name down here. Maybe they're actually intending that this stuff inside the main element stay the same from page to page too. But for now, since it's in the main element, I'm going to assume that it doesn't. But I will preserve the element of the H1 because that's the page name. And then, well, I suppose that's the only thing worth preserving for right now. So I'm going to get rid of everything in here inside the main element except for that H1 for now. I think that's the right way to do it. So grab this stuff and get rid of it. And then these three figures down here, get rid of those guys until we just have the main element in here. Or sorry, the H1 inside the main. And then let's just put Nicole. No, wait, was it Nicole? What was it again? Anybody remember? Hang on, let me open up and...
Amy.
Amy, thank you. Amy Chua. And then we'll add a couple of more things to this before we start duplicating this file. Let's put an H2 right underneath that and then just say this page under construction. Of course, you really don't want that to happen while you're when you're live, but we're nowhere near going live with this project yet. Now I'm going to get one more thing here. I'm going to put paragraph underneath that one, and let's put a hyperlink that will take the stray user, if they happen to venture this far, back to the home page. So I do want to, let me go ahead and open up that other file again. Open recent, that's what I'm looking for. And of course, when you do a save as, it disappears from the recent files, which is really silly. There we go. So I want to take a look at these hyperlinks that we added. So speakers/tubin.html. So what this means, well, you guys probably all know this stuff. This is looking for a subfolder here. The slash indicates that, and then it looks for the file name inside of there. You guys may be used to dealing with backslashes instead, but on the web, you use forward slashes as the commonly used directory indicator. So this is what it means. If you need to go into a subfolder, then this is what it looks like. The name of the folder, and then slash, and then the file name. To go up one folder, you guys are probably familiar with this as well. We're going to use the .. slash syntax to go up one folder. So this file is going to be inside the subfolder. We need to take it back out to the root directory and then find the index page from there. So let's go ahead and build our A tag here. That's the anchor. And I'm just going to do something really simple here. You could say go back to home page or return to the home page or go back or anything like that. Whatever makes sense to you. And then inside the anchor, let's do an href equals. And I'm going to be looking for the index.html, but remember, we got to go up one folder before we do that. So this is going to be the // like this. // index.html. That's the... So just something like this. If we were running this through an actual web server, then we could get away with that. Just take it up one folder, and when you don't tell the file name, it looks for the index. And if you've got one, then you're good to go. But in this case, we're running this off of, we're running it not localhost, but what is the file protocol, the / protocol. So, oh, whoops. There we go. Ha! That's what I'm looking for. So once you get something like this, go ahead and save. And then, again, we will do the save as thing. So we've got to save this as Sorkin and as Tubin. Just take a chua.html, file save as, and we'll call this one Sorkin.html. Make sure it's still saving to speakers. Save, and then once again do file and save as, and Tubin.html, and again save it to speaker. I mean, it'll be the same folder, but just checking it, making sure. Okay, so now this stuff's all saved. I'm going to pop over to the browser and try this again. I'm going to refresh here, and then I'll try following these guys out. And now instead of going, oh, look what I did. I made a boo-boo. So we got to change the actual file name that's being referenced in each of these, which I wasn't thinking about. So well, wait. No, actually, I must have just messed up yesterday. Let's see. This one should go to Tubin, this one should go to Sorkin, and this one should go to Chua. So what, yeah, the file is the same. What I need to do is change the H1 and each one. So that's what I messed up on. I'm going to go ahead and crack these open again. And of course it won't do it for me. Okay, there's Sorkin. So this is what I messed up on. I forgot to change this heading here. So for this one, it should say Andrew Ross Sorkin. And then for the Tubin here, what's Tubin's name? Jeffrey Tubin. And that, folks, is why you check all of your links in a browser after you've made your pages and your hyperlinks between them, because that's when you start spotting errors. So let me refresh again. This time when I go to Jeffrey Tubin, it should say Jeffrey Tubin. There we go. This one should go to Sorkin. There we go. And this one goes to Amy Chua. Notice that the browser gives me a visited link color. This is an old convention that goes all the way back to the 90s. I'm still not sure why we have it exactly as default. Amy Chua, and then back. So the one thing that I did not check, I was just checking the links from the index page here. I have not checked the links going back the other direction yet. I'm going to do that now. So I'll follow each of these in turn, and now I will check the return. Now this really should be enough because we duplicated the file. We didn't write each one from scratch, so surely the other links back to the home page will work as well. I'm still going to check them, especially since I made kind of an error. That gives me red flags that I should just go ahead and check all of these right now. Okay, cool. So, is that it? Are we done? We've got a little bit of a website here. I mean, not really. The 3 subpages don't have any content yet, but at least all the links work. So are we done? Am I ready to send this to the client now, or am I ready to submit it if this were a homework assignment and I was turning it into an instructor? Am I ready to go yet? What do you guys think?
No.
What's left to be done?
I think we need to annotate it.
Annotate it, okay. So put some comments in here, you mean?
Yes.
What kind of comments should we put?
Like this is going to be place your name of your like uh, H3 celebrating our 75th. This is going to be my client's web page tag name or something like that, or tag slogan or something like that.
Okay. I would have thought that in the place that I would think of for the comments would be where it says this page under construction. And
Well,
then,
I was looking where your mouse was. My bad.
okay, yeah. Well, that's not to say that you're wrong. I mean, this is just something that I would think of first because this is the stuff that still needs to be done on this page, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. It's a good idea. So remember how you do a comment in HTML? It's still with the brackets. You do the exclamation and then dash dash, and of course it'll autocomplete it for you if you're using a code editor that's worth itself. And this will be info about the month's speaker or whatever, right? Probably something a little bit more verbose than that. But yeah, something like this maybe. And I deliberately kept it generic without mentioning the names so that we could take this and copy and paste it into the other two speaker pages in the same spot. I hate that. If I happen to accidentally hit Control C, it copies an empty line. I have to go back and copy this again. I'm sure it's useful. I'll see, I don't need on that. Where's Chua? I need to get Chua open again here. Okay, there it is. Okay, good. That was a good suggestion. And there's certainly other places where you can put comments in here as well. There's some things missing. Another place that would be a good candidate for a comments would be at the bottom of the head element here, because we're certainly going to need some CSS. We're going to be doing that next week, and later on I'm sure we'll add some JavaScript for, I don't know what it'll be, drop-down navigation, lightbox gallery, something like that. We'll see. But for now, yeah, good. So we put in a few comments in there. What else do we need to do before sharing this website?
I would say I need to sign it, like probably on the main page, like created by Master Yaks Intermedia, blah, 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 something like that, in a non visible way, so someone knows that this page was actually created by an amateur or professional, whichever way you want to look at it.
So yeah, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. One, you could do another comment down at the bottom here. I'm just going to say IS250. And I'm not going to go there right now, but there's another way to do it which involves meta tags up here. Meta tags are not just used to specify the character set. They're also used to give the browser instructions about the screen size that it's on, and to carry metadata about, as the name implies, right, about the page, including some SEO stuff that web crawlers will pay attention to. And one of those things you can do is you can do meta name equals author, and then content equals, and then put your name in there. So we'll do more meta tags probably in week 3 as we start looking into responsive design. So that would be the way that I would probably do it, but in the meantime, we can do it with another comment down here that will not show up to the user. Okay, these are all good suggestions. I'll tell you what I'm looking for here. Validation. Now we've validated the index.html, although now I've made an edit to it, so I want to validate it again. So remember, you can go to validator.nu, or you can do validator.w3.org/nu, either one. And I probably still got it open here in the browser. Let me check. Let's see. Is that it right there? That is the W3. Oh, that's the CSS validation service. What am I doing with that? Let's go ahead and just do validator.w3. This one will work just fine, usually. .org/nu, like this. And when it comes to files that have been authored locally, I usually like to do a file upload, even though, like, if I wind up with errors that I'm not immediately sure what to fix about it, then I will use the text field and paste it in there, the text input, because then I can fix them on the fly and keep checking it over and over again until all of those errors are taken care of. We saw that yesterday, right? We tried that with that CERN website, which is the first ever web page ever in the history of anything ever. But in the meantime, just to do an initial check, I like doing a file upload. There's no chance of me accidentally like leaving certain characters behind and failing to paste the whole thing or something like that. Just the last thing to check is just to go back here and make sure that I have saved everything at least, and yes, I have. So I'll choose File, and I'll check the index one more time just because we made a change to it. Oops, I already chose that. Cancel that. Check. Now I just... Thank you. Don't do what I say. Do what I mean. Check. Okay, green. That's what we're looking for.
As I want.
What's that?
Don't do as I say. Do as I want.
Do as I want, yes. Okay, so we got to check those other 3 files that we just made. So let's choose the other files. Go into speakers. Do them one at a time. I know it's a pain, but really, it only takes a few seconds. It's invaluable as a spell check for finding errors. In addition to helping you find errors, it'll teach you how to write HTML, because when you do find an error, it'll teach you more about best practices, especially when the error is not immediately obvious. Remember, I was saying that sometimes the mistake actually happened in a prior line, maybe not even the most recent prior line. And so you have to go digging through it, and then you can learn things about coding that way. Probably the 2 things that taught me the most when I was starting out were validation and just checking out the source code on web pages. I did that constantly. Whenever I was like, oh gosh, how did they do that? What kind of structure is this? How's that happening? And of course, I quickly ran into errors because I didn't know anything about scripting at the time when I was starting. I only knew HTML and CSS, and so when something was happening that wasn't part of those documents, then I was completely lost. But that's what eventually drove me to learn some JavaScript and then some PHP and so on. Okay, so that is the second to last thing that you want to do. The actual last thing is to go to your root directory and zip it up, right? Remember that when you share or submit or post or whatever, you always want to do the whole thing. Now, this doesn't work when you're uploading to a web server. The file server, it needs to have those files independent of each other and not all zipped up in one. But otherwise, it's a good idea to always just right-click, compress to zip file, and turn that in. And actually, I had you guys change the name of this, didn't I? So let me go ahead and change the name of the folder before I zip it up. Now, this one, I'm going to have to close these documents from here before I change the name of the folder that they're in. Otherwise, somebody's going to yell at me. I'm not sure if it's going to be Windows or code. Somebody's going to yell. Now I can go in here. What is this dumb thing that do not need that? Please just go away. Don't like that. Makes me nervous. I'm going to rename this, and I think I asked for your last name and chapter 3, CH3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I actually named my zip file that, but did not change the directory file.
That's fine. That's not a problem.
Okay. And by the way, I must say, I feel very bad for your laptop. Sounds like you're beating the hell out of that touchpad.
I don't think I am, but maybe like, I am. I don't know.
It's like whack.
All right. I'll try to be careful. There I go again.
There it is.
Compress it. Yeah, I'm actually not hitting it very hard. It's just making a big click when I do it. So something like this, your last name, -ch3.zip, this is what you want to submit to me for this assignment. So there we go. That's all I wanted to show you, just a little bit more. It took a little bit more than 15 minutes, but about 25 minutes. Any questions about any of that or any excitement over your very first website?
If I had to look at it, if I looked at this website, I would immediately turn away and probably not look at it again, because this is probably the world's worst unresponsive website ever in the world.
Oh, I can find you some worse ones.
No, I would rather read Encyclopedia Britannica on old Netscape than look at this.
Good one. Yeah, the design is not the best in the world, but it'll do for our purposes.
Okay, so all those really cool websites that have all the like the flyouts and the carousels and all the other good stuff, those are still HTML.
Well, HTML and CSS, and if you're talking about a responsive carousel, then it's probably got some JavaScript, although it's possible to do that now without JavaScript.
Okay,
And
so the fundamentals of all the really cool websites that we look at that our kids spend so much time on, they're still HTML.
at the basis of it, yes.
Okay.
Um, there are some sites now and apps and so on that are built entirely using React. Um, but even React uses JSX, which is a really cool thing that they've come up with, where you can basically write HTML right there in the JavaScript. Um, so yeah, I mean, it all boils down to this basic markup language that's been in place for almost 25 years now. It's still the basis of everything. Last thing I want to point out is that I did name my directory here. My root directory is not the same name as it was, so when I go back to the browser and go to my page here, it's going to be fine, but if I refresh it, then it's going to go file not found, right? Because it's a different folder name. So I can either open up the file directly, or I can just go up here to my path and just change that, and it'll find it again. No problem. And actually, you say non-responsive, but I will point this one little thing out before we stop. Before we add any CSS, it actually is responsive. This would work perfectly fine on a mobile device. It might not look wonderful, but it is responsive. The trouble starts when we start adding CSS. And then we have to figure out how to fix the CSS that we put in so that it is once again responsive. Kind of like that CERN website or the web page, right? That one's responsive even though it looks, well, just a bit dated now. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.